Hi everybody, I have a Barnes & Noble haul to share with you today. I'm really excited about this stuff. Now, what you don't know is that this is actually the second time I am recording this, because the first time I recorded this, it was all new to me what I was taking out of the box, and I was pausing and looking at it and reading the back of the book and sifting through the pages of the book, and that doesn't do for a very good video. So we have The True Adventure of Charlie Darwin, but this is a historical fiction. Is it? Can't remember. A novel. Fellas. So I took all the books out, I've put them into different piles, and I just want to say that with the kids, we've already read this whole entire pile, so I can actually tell you about these books as I go through them. The other thing that I want to say is that a lot of these books I purchased based on suggestions from a few other channels, a couple of booktubers and a couple of homeschoolers, and so I'm going to link all of their channels below, and if I remember which book came from which channel, I will let you know as we go along. All right, the first thing I want to show you actually is this. Now, we picked this up from the library years ago, and I am not near that library anymore, so we decided to go ahead and add this to our collection. This is a collection of poetry read by the poet. It's beautiful. I absolutely love this so much. Now, the only thing, a word of caution, if you are interested in getting something like this, or this one in particular for your family, just know that there are some poems that have some inappropriate language and some, flat out bad words. So do be mindful of that. I didn't know the first time we listened to this quite loudly in the car, actually, and we were quite shocked when we heard some of the things that, weren't exactly appropriate. But it's really cool because there's actually, I think, Robert Frost in here as well, and he's reading his poem The Road Not Taken, and that was just magical to listen to. All right, I'm going to show you the picture books first. This first one, Winter is Coming, is one that I actually picked up because the illustrator, Jim LaMarche, is amazing. I went through and I just looked for as many books as I could find from him because I just was really drawn to every page you could just frame it. It's so beautiful. And the story is also really nice too. It's not as engaging as some other stories. It's a little bit slow, but the pictures are just what draws you in. Okay, the next book I want to show you is called My Two Blankets, and this book is based on a true story. The author's daughter met a Sudanese girl who had migrated out of her country, and it's the story of how sad and lonely she feels when she first arrives in the new country, and how a girl befriends her, and how that really helped ease her transition. All right, another book by Jim LaMarche. This one is called Pond. Now, what I like about this one over Winter is Coming is that this one is written and illustrated by Jim LaMarche, and I actually like the story a lot. It goes through an entire year, all of the seasons, and kind of a project that these three children have. And it's a really delightful story, and of course the illustrations are beautiful, but the story really is engaging and keeps you going throughout the whole entire book. And that I actually like the story of this one a little bit more than the other one, and that was just kind of a cool surprise. All right, How Do Apples Grow? Now, I bought this one because of the author, Betsy Maestro, who wrote a lot of these other history books that I like. And I'll talk about these in a minute, but I saw that she had written this one as well, and so I picked it up, and it's really nice. It's a great book for maybe a botany unit or a spring unit. Really, really nice book to add to your unit, or just, to read as a picture book. All right, The Elves and the Shoemaker. This one is also illustrated by Jim LaMarche, and that's why I picked it up. So it's a really cute tale about an old shoemaker that doesn't have a lot of leather left, and he cuts out his leather, and then he wakes up the next morning, and then the shoes are already made, and it's a really cute little delightful story. And of course, again, every page is like a work of art. Okay, so the next book is called The Heart in the Bottle, and this is another book that I learned about from Molly de Montaigne. And this book actually comes with an audio CD. So it comes with 2 tracks, one where you can just listen to the whole story and one that has the little signals to turn the page. And this is a story about loss. If a person or a child has lost a loved one, this is a story of a little bit of the grieving process. I would consider this still a little bit emotionally heavy if you have a child that's really sensitive. If you have a child that has experienced loss in his or her life, this might be a good book to help ease or help with that grief and that transition. The Fox and the Star. This is another one that I learned about from Molly, and this is another one that also deals with grief. Now, this is a very beautiful book, really different than other picture books. And it's nice and thick, but it reads as fast as any other picture book. And the cover is this nice fabric cover. And the paper, number one, the paper is really great and thick. I really like it when books are just the highest quality possible. Like, it just makes you feel like you really have something that's special. And the print is amazing. It looks like pattern paper or wallpaper. It's really, really nice. So it's a story about a fox and his friend, a star, and he loses a star. He can't find a star, and it's just his whole process. What's really great is that it's so unique in the way that it's been written and illustrated. Sometimes the writing is within this beautiful pattern, and then of course you've got the rest of the illustration kind of tucked in with the pattern, and other times it's a little bit more mysterious, like you actually have to look for the bunnies. And then later, you know, there's other times when you can't really see the beetles or you can't really see the text. It's fun and engaging. My 10-year-old really enjoyed the more interactive parts of this book, which aren't literally interactive. They invite that kind of interaction. And then my daughter also enjoyed it. Like, this page has the words, the text kind of hidden within here. And as I read it, he's like, where was that word? Where did you find it? And so that was kind of fun to do with him. And the illustrations are really different. Now, this is not something that I would normally pick up and say, oh, I like this, or I'm drawn to it. But I do like adding things that are different. Otherwise, all my picture books would look the same. And this kind of art is not ever something that I would gravitate towards naturally on my own. So I'm happy to bring some of this in just to add some diversity to our picture books for our kids. And look at this. The text, again, is kind of hidden within the illustrations. All right, the next one is called A Sea to Sleepy, and my friend Angie told me about this book because I have A Rock is Lively, and she told me there's a whole series of them, so I went ahead and picked it up. And I love A Rock is Lively as much as I like this one, in part because, again, the illustrations are magnificent. Now, what's interesting about this book is that you've got the parts that are more of like a narrative, more of a story in like the cursive handwriting. And then you have, in more of like the regular text, you have more of like the scientific stuff, the scientific component to the story. And if you had, say, like a kindergartner, for instance, you know, in my opinion, I would just read the stuff that's more magical and more imaginative, and then I would save the more scientific background for an older child. Now, as I was reading this, I could see my daughter really enjoy this part of it, and I could see my 10-year-old kind of enjoy this part of it. Like, he had more questions about the text part, you know, the stuff that was more the science part. So this would be a great book to read for multiple age groups, because I think that it's enjoyable for young students and for older students, and it would be great for a spring unit or just, you know, to have as a picture book. Fall Leaves, though I read these to my children, these would probably be ones that I put like in some kind of seasonal basket for when fall comes around again, and we can pull these out, and some other things like maybe do some leaf pressing or something just more seasonal. Now, we did not enjoy this book. I'll just tell you, since I know this is a haul, but I can actually review some of these books since we did already read them. We didn't enjoy this book because the text that comes along with the book is very dry and very boring. But the titles for each page, you could just read that. When summer leaves, fall arrives. I think that would be enough, and then you could move on to the next page. Birds leave. Reading this part just didn't flow very well with the story, and my kids, they just weren't that interested. Halfway through, they wanted to stop reading it. And the illustrations, again, they're not something that I would be interested in, but again, adding some things that are a little bit different to our picture books I think is a good idea, but you know, wasn't really crazy about them. They're a little different. You may love them, they may be right up your alley, and then this book would be totally for you. We have Leaf Man. Now, this is not one that I actually ended up liking either until I read the very back of the book and I read the author's note, and then I just totally fell in love with this book. I don't particularly like when you've got like kind of real life images and they're kind of cut out and pasted onto like more of like an illustrated background, and it kind of looks a little bit computer, and I just didn't care for it that much. So we read the book. The text is totally fine. Then I read the back and I read the author's note, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So the author went around when she was a child, anytime there was a beautiful leaf, she picked it up and she wanted to save it. So she pressed it in a phone book, and then she'd come and open it months later, and the leaf would be dry and brittle and cracked and break, and you know, you can't really save leaves that way. So then she decided to color copy the leaves as soon as she picked them up. So she started this huge catalog of color copied leaves. As soon as she saw them, she would photocopy them as soon as she could. And she did this for a period of time, and then these are actually the photocopies that she used. And I was like, that's amazing. We need to try that. So it's going on my potential list of activities to do next year is something like this. I thought it was a really great idea. All right, a couple more books here. These last two are also recommendations from Molly, and this one's called Granddad's Island. This is a story about a child and his grandfather, and the grandfather is leaving. And so this is the story about the child in a way saying goodbye to his grandfather. This one, I think we all cried when we read this one. It's called The Journey, and this is a story about a family who needs to leave a country that is war-torn, and it's their journey to get across the border and then get across the sea and finally make it to a new land. And it is heartbreaking, and at the end, you know, you're happy for them. They're able to start over, but the whole journey is really heartbreaking, and it was actually really difficult to read through, to be honest. But I was really impressed. My kids liked it in the end, and I'm pretty sure that they would allow me to read it to them again. If you get a chance to read the author's note, I think it adds so much to the book, and so we really like this one a lot, even though it was quite sad. All right, so I want to show you the next stack of books here. Let me do these ones really quickly because they're all by the same author and they're all basically the same. So I'm going to try to get through these really quickly. So I really enjoyed this series of books. It's called the American Stories series by Betsy Maestro, and we had one of them in our homeschool collection hand me down, and I enjoyed it so much I went looking for the rest, and most of them were from Barnes & Noble. I think I found one or two from Rainbow Resource. Now the ones in the American Stories series are a lot denser than another one that I'm going to show you in a minute. So this one has a lot of text, really beautiful illustrations, has a very engaging story. We liked it a lot. So this one has Liberty or Death. So this is 1763 to 1783. This one would come before Struggle for a Continent. Again, same series. So this is quite dense on the information, but it's written in a really engaging manner. We really enjoyed it a lot. Again, really beautiful illustrations. Worth reading twice, or at least splitting up over several days. These three here are similar, but like this one's called The Discovery of the Americas. This one has, the text is a lot less. Like you could read this in one sitting, no problem. And then of course, still beautiful illustrations. And so then this is the story of the Statue of Liberty. This is a little bit more like a picture book. And actually this is more like a picture book too. This is Coming to America, the story of immigration, and still great content, beautiful illustrations, but a little bit less than the American series. American Story Series. And then the last one is Exploration and Conquest. This is the Americas after Columbus. Actually, this would come first, actually, 1500s to 1620. And then this one this is in the middle, not quite picture book, a little bit more than picture book and a little bit less than some of the other ones that I showed you. Still like really great content, really beautiful illustrations. Now, we haven't read these ones that I'm showing you now, but we have read other ones in the series, and that is why I went back and looked for the rest of them, because we like them so much. And this one's called The Story of Clocks and Calendars, and I don't actually need this one right now at all. We've already done ancient Egypt, we did ancient Rome, but we'll circle through those units again. So I'm actually getting this now. We could read it for fun, but we probably won't read it again until our ancient Egyptian units, although there is something that's a little bit more modern here that has to do with clocks, so might read that passage. All right, I have books here. The first one is Fever 1793. This is a historical fiction. This works really well with our American history unit, and I'm actually just going to assign this to my 5th grader. All right, the next book I picked up because Emily over ARG Schooling raved about Carolyn Meyer, and she had a number of books that were about the different queens of England and just really great historical fiction. And so I picked up The True Adventures of Charlie Darwin, and we'll see how this one goes. I'm excited to pick up more in this series, but we decided to start with this one. The Long Road to Gettysburg, Blizzard, and The Great Fire. These are all written in an engaging manner, and so I got these again from my 5th grader to read. I got him these ones as well. I thought that they would be more interesting than a normal textbook. I'm hoping that they have a living book quality to them. All right, and the last book is the Oxford Illustrated Book of American Children's Poems, and this one I saw on Candice's channel, which is Homeschool on the Hill. She had this as part of the Book Shark history unit, and I had been looking for a new poetry book for us to read, so I'm happy to add this in. We also got a few books from Waldorf Supplies, and we will be adding those to our daily reading as well. I will let you know how we liked all of these in a few months. All right, thanks for watching.